In this session, we will do just one thing, and that is we will do exercises on sentences which require you to use Konjunktiv II. For example, you know sollen. This is a modal verb. It's Konjunktiv II, or depending on how you say it. So the best way to say this is Konjunktiv II. So Konjunktiv II. Okay. Then the Konjunktiv II of sollen is sollten. And for example, then you have können. Its Konjunktiv II is könnten. Then you have sein. Sein for Konjunktiv II becomes wären. So if you don't know what this is, we discussed about this in detail in our last session, in the session 9 for A2 level. When do you need this? So you need this basically in just two situations. There can be other situations as well, but basically you need to use this when you are talking about hypothetical situations. For example, you say I am rich, then you can say I was rich. So here they are both facts, right? So you are rich, and or in the past you were rich. But if I want to say I wish I were rich, or if I were rich, now I'm talking about hypothetical situations. So here you have to use Konjunktiv II. Then the other situation can be is when you are talking about when you are making request, but you are requesting, you want to be more polite in your request. Let's say if you want to ask to tell someone, can you please, can you please blah blah blah. So kannst du, you want to say kannst du mir das Buch geben? Can you please give me the book, right? Or it can be something else. Can you please, kannst du, if you want to say can you speak loudly, you can say kannst du lauter sprechen, right? But this doesn't sound that polite. If you want to be more polite, so you can say in German könntest du bitte. So it becomes now more polite. All right, let us start with the exercises. So that was the disclaimer. This is the 10th session. All the 24 sessions are free for all, so feel free to join. You can just contact me over here. You can ask your friends to just write me an email, and I will send you the links to join the free sessions. So the first sentence is, if the boss were in office, we could ask him for advice. Okay, so before you start writing this, you should think, how can I say, so what is the verb that I need? So you need the verb to be, right? If something, so the verb is sein, but here you are talking about hypothetical situations. If the boss were in office, so you will not use sein, you will use wären, right? The Konjunktiv II variant. Then you need to know how to say the boss in German. So the boss is der Chef. If it happens to be a woman, it will be die Chefin. Office, so you will have to use in as a preposition, and it happens also in German. How do you say office? Office is Büro. It is das Büro. Okay, you will have to know that when you use in this situation, because you are just describing a position. If something was somewhere, okay, here what comes after in, because it is just describing a static position, so what comes after in will be dative. So das Büro, so this das will become them because it is dative. It has to be dative in this case. Now you should check the second sentence. So here you will be using two verbs. Why? So you will be using could and then ask. And when you use two verbs, so you should be careful. So here you can also use, if we can ask him for advice, you can say that also, but normally you are talking about a hypothetical situation, right? So instead of using können, you will use könnten. That is, and then you will use the other verb, that is ask, so fragen. But because when you are using könnten and fragen together, you only have to conjugate this one. This one will be in its infinitive form at the last position. Now you have to ask for something. So immediately you will think, okay, for in German it is few. If you say it, if you use it, and if you say this, like if you use few in this situation, nobody will point out your mistake. They will be just happy that you are trying to speak German, but it is incorrect. So I told you you can replace for with few, but not always. Here the verb is actually to ask someone for something. So to ask someone for something, let's just say that. So to ask, the verb is fragen. Now to ask for something, right? So the verb, you should learn it like this. Um etwas fragen. So to here you will have to use just accept it. Don't think you use to say draait se nur at 13 or wird se nur at 14 at 2 p.m. Here means don't try to translate as for. Just accept when you want to say to ask for something, you will use etwas fragen. Okay. So and for could you will use könnten. So let's look at the answer. So when, then the second position is taken by the subject. The subject is der Chef. The last position will be taken by the verb, which has been conjugated. So when der Chef wäre, here you will have the other rest of the sentence. So when der Chef im Büro wäre. Okay. If there was no if you just want to say the boss were in office, then you would have der Chef wäre im Büro. Okay, but because you are using wenn, it comes here, right, before the subject, and this wäre moves to the last position. That is why you have wäre over here at the last position. Okay, you have it at the last position, and this one im Büro, it is in dative case, so it's actually in dem Büro. In German, you can, when you have in them, you can just say im. Other examples of this you can use short forms are when you have in, thus you will use ins. Okay. Other examples, let me think. There are other examples, but I can think of them right now. But you have such short forms. So, but important thing you have to remember here, what comes after in is in dative case. Why? Because you're talking about static position. You learned this in A1. If not, please go back. So in happens to be a Wechsel preposition, and it can be sometimes accusative, sometimes dative. Whenever it is describing a static position, it is dative. This is how I think. Like when I say static position, this is not how like the definition is, but this is how I think. When I'm using, so whenever I'm using prepositions like in, auf, über, an, hinter, right? This means in. This is on. This is over. An is also on, but it is, so the difference between auf and an is, auf is, let's say this is the ground, and then you have a table over here and you have a cup over here. This is auf. What is an? This is the wall, right? Vertical wall. Of course, wall is vertical, and here you have the ground, and you have a watch over here. So now here you will have to use an. So I hope you get the idea. So now the next sentence is, we could ask him for advice. Now if this sentence was not there, right, this was the only sentence, if it was, we could ask him for advice, then you would write it like this: wir könnten ihn Rat fragen. But because this happens to be Nebensatz, okay, because this is the Nebensatz, in Nebensatz the verb which is being conjugated will be at the first position. Okay, modal verb is being, okay, this is not a modal verb, I apologize for this, it's not a modal verb, it's Konjunktiv II. Okay, I think I wrote modal verb just to make you understand that how the grammar works, because whenever you also have modal verb, so you only conjugate the modal verb, and other verb you leave it as it is in its infinitive form. Okay, this one is in its infinitive form. Könnten fragen, then you will have the subject over here, second position. This is not dative, this is accusative. Ihn Rat fragen. Okay, so the verb actually is jemanden usually Rat, Rat is advice, then you have Erlaubnis, which is permission, Fragen. So next, so here, jemandem Rat fragen, jemandem Erlaubnis fragen. You should learn these two new verbs. To ask someone for advice, to ask someone for permission. Again, this one is not dative, it's accusative. Next sentence is, if it would be desirable, it would be desirable if all the colleagues come on time to the building. Again, you're talking about hypothetical situation, right? It would be desirable. You're not saying it is desirable, you're saying it would be desirable if all colleagues come on time to the meeting. Now, before you start writing this, let's go with the first sentence. So here you just have one verb, would, right? So here you can use, so the sein and its Konjunktiv II is wären, or you can also use Konjunktiv II of werden, which is würden, right? So you can use either würden or wären. Of course, you have to conjugate it for the subject. Then würden will be würde, wären will be wäre. So desirable. How do you say desirable in German? It's an adjective or an adverb. So I think you can say wünschenswert or erwünscht, right? So to write this, you will write es wäre wünschenswert, or you can also say würde, es würde wünschenswert, right? The next one, if all colleagues come on time to the meeting. Again, if, so you will have to use a condition and you will use wen. Colleagues, how do you say colleagues in German? So you can say Kollegen come on time to the meeting. So come, you will say kommen, but come to something. So you will use zu, and what comes after zu over here will be dative. And what will be in dative? The meeting. Meeting, you can use das Meeting or die Besprechung. When das Meeting, so it will become zu dem Meeting. If you use die Besprechung, so die will become der Besprechung. Because zu, so zu plus dem becomes zum, and zu plus der becomes zur. Okay. Now let us try to see the complete answer. So you start with es wäre wünschenswert or erwünscht. Again, you can use other synonyms for desirable as well in German. So you start with the subject, normal sentence, then the second position is taken by the verb, which has been conjugated with respect to the subject. Then you have wünschenswert or erwünscht at the last position. Then you start with when, and just immediately after when, you will have the subject, and the verb which was supposed to be here will go over here. Now, here you can use like common and you can conjugate it, but again, this is a hypothetical situation, right? So common is the verb, and it also has a Konjunktiv II, that is kämen. Again, it's fine if you even if you use common over here, it is still fine. Just trying to tell you, every verb, almost every verb has a Konjunktiv II. Okay, it's fine if you use common over here. Okay, notice, but it has been conjugated. It does not look like conjugated because you are using alle, and alle is third party, so third party plural, and for that you use the verb in its infinitive form. That means the conjugation looks like the infinitive form. But what you have to notice is that after wen, the subject is at the first position, the verb is at the last position, and everything in between comes over here. So zu a Besprechung, dative, zu der Besprechung. You can also say zu dem Meeting, zum Meeting, pünktlich, on time, Okay. Why it is alle and why it is not allen or allem, or why it is are? It is because you learned the adjective endings in the last session. Okay, please go back. I think last or second last session. Please go back to it. Then let's look at some verbs. Also, what I want to do is, what I want to help you understand is that whenever you do such kind of examples, right? So always I will use the word exploit. Exploit each word. What do I mean by that? Take each word. For example, let we will take the verb common. Okay, here it is came, and so this connected. So I will take the verb common and see, are there other variations of common, and will the meaning change? Okay, this is how you can just take one example and try to learn many different words, which will help you say many different things. For example, you know common, right? Common means to come. So it was dative common to come to something. Then you have uncommon. What does uncommon? It's a trennbarer where if you happen to be in Germany and if you have traveled in train, so uncommon means arrive. You know, for example, the train is coming, so they will say that Zug kommt an. Meaning changes. So now you have etwas dative nachkommen. It means to oblige or comply with something. Again, it's a trennbarer verb. Okay, nachkommen. Here the an example is unsere Produktion kann der Nachfrage